Hey, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome to Utter Lunacy, which is a podcast where I mostly talk about African movies and TV shows, but I'm taking a bit of a detour and I'm going to be talking about how we talk about abuse. This is a 3-part series. The first part is the Sophia and Bumpy story. The second one is the June story as told to Lynn Ngugi. And then the third part is somehow a two-parter. it's Njeri Migwi's story, first as told to Kalekye Mumo, and then second as told to Lynn Ngugi. This is the final part of it. I've had a good time doing it. It's been very enlightening, I'll say, even for myself. And so yeah, this is the final part of the series, which is the Njeri Migwi story as told to Lynn Ngugi. A bit of slight housekeeping and a disclaimer before I get started. I would like to clarify that the purpose of this series is not to dissect what those women said, what these brave women have told us of their stories. It's not to dissect it in a way that criticizes them as much as it is to look at the similarities in the stories that we tell. How society has socialized us to perceive abuse and the way we speak about it. So not just the way these women tell their stories, but also the way the interviewers essentially receive it and the questions that they ask and the interaction that exists between them. So that's the first one. This is coming from a place of concern, not for all of us, and particularly for women, because we continue to live in this very violent society, this very patriarchal society that not only socializes men to be violent towards women, but also has all of these systems that allow them to get away with it. So that's why I'm doing this. I want us to look at the stories that we're telling, the narratives that we have internalized, the things that we continue to believe about abuse, and just review that. Like, is this what we want to believe about abuse? Is it beneficial to think like this about abuse? Is it beneficial to talk like this about it? So that's the first one. The second thing is, I am not an expert in any way. However, I am a person who, as I've said, I'm very concerned about the way society is. I'm especially concerned, I think, because it's personal to me. I am a woman. I present very feminine. According to me, I think other people would argue that I do not present feminine enough. Anyway, so I think I present feminine in terms of how people perceive me, and that means I live with the risk of male violence every single day of my life. And so this is very personal for me. I'm not an expert, but I read a lot about abuse. I have made it my personal mission to study and learn as much as I can. I read academic papers on violence and abuse and gender and, just the way patriarchy has structured society in this hierarchical nonsense that leaves women and children very vulnerable to male abuse. I read books extensively. I have read Why Does He Do That by Bancroft. I've even made a bit of a summary. It's on YouTube of part 1, very in-depth. If you can't be able to read the book for whatever reason, you could check that out. It's very in-depth and I think it will be beneficial. I also am currently reading Evan Stark's Coercive Control, which is very enlightening, a very interesting look into the way the other ways that men abuse women that are not necessarily physical. So, that's who I am. That's why I am a person who's very concerned about abuse and a person who is very, very proud of these women for sharing their stories, because there's so much that we get to learn from it and hopefully unlearn a lot of harmful things that we have all internalized because of living in this patriarchal society. All right, cool. The way this is gonna work is the way that the past 2, I guess, parts have worked, which is I'll play clips from the interview, clips from, in this case, Njeri Migwi's interview with Lynn Ngugi, and then we'll pause and discuss. There may be some ridiculous noise in the background from my cats. Forgive them. Yeah, forgive them. It's going to be a lot. Okay, cool. Let's get started. Thank you.
So my first sexual experience ended up with me having a child. I got pregnant and I gave birth to him.
Yeah, had someone taught you about sex?
No.
Like, no?
No.
So the first time
Who
you
was going to teach me? I started my periods. I remember my dad told me, now Njeri, this is stay free. Those were pads. Zinekangwa hivi, unatoa saa ya break, unatoa saa ya lunch, na unatoa jioni. Kukuja home, unaoga, na you don't play with boys. That's it. That's all the info I had.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what was happening because I started my periods at 11. So I really had no information. And in fact, because I was the youngest in my class, anytime they would have like these talks to girls, I would be told to go out. I'm not yet. And yet I had the periods. And no one really ever bothered. And I had no mother to really guide me or walk me.
And take you through that.
And take me through this.
Yeah.
So here I was. I got pregnant.
Yeah.
I was in Form 4.
So the first time you are sleeping with this man, you end up pregnant.
Yes.
Your first encounter, you end up pregnant.
Yes, and I was told by my friends, you can't get pregnant the first time.
Oh.
So you know the information you each tell each other, you
Yes.
can't get pregnant. So how could I be? I didn't even know I was pregnant. My dad took me to, we were living Kariobangi South Flats.
Yeah.
So my dad took me to Metropolitan Hospital.
Yeah.
And the doctor did a test.
Yeah.
And I was discovered to be pregnant. I was like, I cannot be pregnant. It was only one time. It doesn't happen like this.
So much. One of the things that obviously stands out clearly is the fact that we just do not have any sexual education for children, sexual and reproductive health education for children at all. We do not have it at home. We do not have it in school. We do not have it anywhere. And what it does is we imagine we're protecting children, but what we're doing is making them very vulnerable to all sorts of things. So in her case, now all they're doing is like educating each other from like a place of nonsense. They don't know anything. So it's a case of the blind leading the blind. So it's a case of, sorry, my cat. It's a case of the blind leading the blind. And in this case, they tell each other that you can't get pregnant the first time. Obviously, she gets pregnant the first time. What's interesting to me, and especially when it comes to her case, she says that because she didn't have a mom, sort of that education fell through even more, right? Because those very little her dad could tell her, or not could tell her, there was very little that her dad told her, and then she was getting kicked out of class. And then, because her mom wasn't present, she imagines if her mom was present, she'd have done more, she'd have taught her more. And I think I really need people who grew up like in 2-parent households to talk openly about what it was like. Because so many times people who grow up in single-parent households have this, fantastical imagination about what it's like to grow up in 2-parent households. It's just not real. I grew up with my mom and my dad, and I do not, for the life of me, remember any single person, to this day. I have tried to think about what my mom could have possibly told me about periods and changing bodies and all of that. Nothing. I do not even remember my mother buying pads. That's how bad it is. And I remember my father buying them and sort of putting them in this shared space where, we would find them, like sort of the store where you would have toilet paper and soap, that kind of thing, right? Where you would buy extras and sort of put it there, and everyone knows that's where the storage is. That's where the pads would be. I do not for the life of me recall my mother saying a single word. Not one. And, for this reason and many more, I really think people who grew up in 2-parent households need to start speaking up about what was what. All the time. And this comes up in Sophia and Bumpy's story. It comes up in June's story, which is the second part. And then now it's coming up in Njeri's story. And it continues to come up. This idea that there's something that they missed out on because they didn't have both parents in the home. And guys, I don't know. Maybe it's because I had both of them in the home, and so now I don't know. Maybe that's my, that's where I'm short-sighted, but I don't think you missed out on anything. To the extent that you missed out on something, it was the presence of an adult parent another adult parent who cared for you, right? That's the thing that was missing. But there's nothing special about the nuclear family the way it's set up. There's nothing that you missed out on just by virtue of that parent not being there. Because they can be there and still not do none of that. People who grew up with and this is especially true for people who grew up with dads in the home, like your mom was there and your dad was there, cute little nuclear family. And they'll just tell you, in a lot of ways, even if their dad had not been there, it would have just went on okay. With the exception of money, which is what most men bring to the home, the shit would have even been better without him. Truly speaking. The stories people have of their dads are just it would have been much better without that motherfucker around. So yeah, tell your stories. People who grew up in these cute two-parent households that make people who grew up in single-parent households feel like they missed out on something. Tell your stories so that they see there isn't much to it. You didn't miss out on nothing.
So instead of bringing back to your dad, you said situoane.
Hapana, he told me tunaenda kwa fadhako kudu, we come tukae. So mimi nikaenda kukaa. That's how I got married.
So you never went back home?
No.
Is dad looking for you?
Yes.
What are you doing about it?
Nothing. We went and hid and got married.
Ile ya
Napana ya kamwiste.
Okay.
Yes. So that's how I got married.
Yeah.
So, but my dad is a teacher, and my dad is relentless, and my dad fought for me, and my dad came, found out where we were, and he told him, listen, my child has to go back to school. So she has to give birth, and she has to go back to school. She has to finish school. This is non-negotiable. This is where I draw a boundary. Otherwise, I'm going to get you arrested because she's underage.
Yes.
And he really caused a lot of chaos.
Yeah.
And so I finished being pregnant, I gave birth, went back to school, and finished my schooling. Thank you, Mr. Mariga. Okay. And then when I did, my dad said I had to go to college. And I had to go to college. And he said he doesn't want anybody to pay for me.
Yeah, he
will pay for it himself. That is his responsibility. And so at that time, we already had conflict. I mean, we were pretty young. We really didn't know what we were doing. We were children, really. Yeah. Just playing house. Yeah, so, yeah. And so half the time I would be kwao, his mother's, or home, because we fought, and I'm home. But my dad took care of my son.
Yes.
Made sure he went to school, play school, so that I could go to college. I finished college. I was lucky enough to get a job.
Like this, Njeri Migwi's dad, there's something really commendable about him. All parents should do that. And I know we commend men for the most basic shit. And we're ooh, clapping. But I don't know. I feel like people just so very easily let girls go, right? Oh, you're married now to a rich family. Okay, cool. All right, you're married now. And it's my kid is going to school. My child is going to school, and not just finishing high school. She's going to college. She's going to study. And it's very commendable. I'll say this, and I've said it before. I mean, it remains surprising to me how much support abusers have, and how much support men in general just have for their nonsense, for all kinds of abuse. They just have so much support. This man who impregnated her when she was 15, when she was a child, takes her to live at his parents' home with his parents, and her dad is looking for her. Her dad is looking for her everywhere, and his parents don't even take a moment to be okay, so should we maybe talk to her parents? Should we maybe find out if they know where she's at? Should we maybe find out if they're concerned? They just didn't give a fuck. They just did not give one single fuck about a 15-year-old girl? How does your son bring home a 15-year-old girl? And then you're just like, okay, he's brought a girl home and she's pregnant. I swear, boy moms, parents of boys, they're just terrible. They're the first people who teach boys how to get away with harming girls. They create a safe space for them to not only do it, but get away with it and continue doing it. Oh my God. Like, I cannot with boy moms and parents of boys. I cannot with them. Ugh.
I think I was a child who had an idea of what love looked like. And also, for people who've come from broken homes, there's this idea inside us that we can do this. We can build a home.
Because again, I come from a broken one. Mine has to be stable.
Mine has to be stable.
Exactly.
And so I kept on going back. Yeah. Even though there was no foundation, we really didn't have a good foundation. I wanted to prove. And my dad kept on telling me, this is not the man for you all the time.
Yeah.
Njeri, you need to know yourself. You're still a child. Now you're finished college, you've started work. I think just live by yourself and just see the world. There's nothing you know, but I was so determined. Yes. I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to prove to the world that just because I came from brokenness doesn't mean that I couldn't hold a home together. And so we started living together.
Yeah.
This one is another one that just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. This need to prove that you can have your own family, that you can sustain and build a complete household, given that you came from a broken one. And yeah, anyway, it keeps coming up and coming up. This needing to prove something to people. And it's very sad. It's pressure that continues to be put on single parent households and children who are born in them. Just by the way that we continue to treat especially women from single parent households. Oh my God. Like, I feel like every week on social media, like, we have to dunk on single mothers and how they're the cause of everything. Oh, most of the men in prison come from single parent households. Oh, the poorest children come from single parent households. Oh, abusive men come from single parent households. Oh, girls who are mostly abused come from single parent households because they're looking for their dad. Ugh. I think that, and I just said it, and I really think it's true. We just, I guess the word would be valorize. It's valorize, romanticize. Let's say romanticize. We really romanticize the nuclear family and the two-parent household in a way that makes people who did not have that feel this pressure to make one, be a part of one, and sort of sustain one. And there's nothing there. There's really nothing there. There's nothing special about a two-parent household. There's nothing special about the nuclear family in the way that we've been told it is mother, father, child. There's nothing special about it. There's nothing special about it. A family should be individuals who love and care for each other. That's it. And I truly think this is why conservative types and religious types of all kinds completely despise and hate queer people. Because queer people, they go out and make their own families. And they do not care about this setup that we have that, holds in high esteem this mother-father setup, mother-father-children setup. They don't care about it. They go out and, this used to happen a lot when they were rejected by their families. They would just go out and make families. And they didn't need to follow this arbitrary structure that we have in place. If you're listening to this, I feel like if I could tell people who are in single parent households one thing, it's that you are being lied to, you're being deceived. This thing that looks almost perfect and desirable from the outside, it's nothing. It's nothing. The emperor is naked. Everyone is just pretending. Everyone is just pretending. There's nothing to desire about patriarchal setups. And the nuclear family is like the primary patriarchal setup with its hierarchies and violence and control. You're not missing out on anything. Right? Like if no one else will tell you, I'll tell you. I grew up in a 2-parent household. You are not missing out on anything. The only thing you need is adults who love and care for these children and who create an enabling environment for them to grow and play and be curious and learn. That's what kids need. This is what children need. And conversely now. And this is also what adults need. To be healthy adults, you just need to be surrounded by people who love and care for you. Who will create a safe environment for you to grow and to be and to discover yourself. That's it. That's it. This patriarchal setup that's raised and elevated and made to look like, the be all and end all, and if you don't have this, you're really missing out, and you're gonna turn out bad, and your kids are gonna turn out bad, and they won't even do well in school, and they won't even be good people. And if you have daughters, they're gonna get pregnant, and if you have sons, they're not gonna know how to, be the man of a household. It's bullshit and it's lies. It's patriarchal lies. Let it go. Build your own family. Whatever setup works for you, you build that. With people who love and care for you. Period. Period. Safe people. That's it. That's it. Don't be deceived. Do not. Just believe me, Aki. I grew up in a 2-parent household. I was surrounded. My entire life. I've been surrounded by people who grew up in 2-parent households. I have never once seen one. And I mean this. I swear to God, I mean this. I've never seen one that made me go like, oh, okay. That's a good setup. That's a good one. I have never once seen one that made me feel like, oh, okay. Okay, I get it now. Why you need to have a 2-parent setup. I'm telling you, once you control for money, there's nothing desirable about the patriarchal setup. Anyway, that's me. I have said it, and I have said it, and okay, I have said it.
Mine has to be stable.
Exactly.
And so I kept on going back.
Yeah.
Even though there was no foundation, we really didn't have a good foundation. I wanted to prove. And my dad kept on telling me, this is not the man for you all the time.
Yeah.
Njeri, you need to know yourself. You're still a child. Now you're finished college, you've started work. I think just live by yourself and just see the world. There's nothing you know, but I was so determined.
Yes.
I wanted to be a good wife. I wanted to prove to the world that just because I came from brokenness doesn't mean that I couldn't hold a home together. And so we started living together.
Yeah.
Let me tell you one thing that stands out to me, particularly about Njeri's story and all these people who grew up in single-parent households. She said she came from brokenness, right? And she wanted to prove that she could have this complete setup. And when I hear about her childhood, I just think, oh my God, this sounds wonderful. All of it sounds so wonderful to me. I cannot believe that we have convinced people like her and all other kinds of people who grew up in generally loving and caring homes that they came from brokenness. It breaks my heart that we have convinced people of this. Because, her childhood, I hear it and I'm like, dude, this is beautiful. So, she grows up in a house with just her dad, right? They don't have gender roles. They don't have none of that. Because they both live in that household. They both contribute to it in different ways. She doesn't do, there's no, she isn't being taught that because you're a girl, you need to do this. And because I am a man, I need to do, none of that. Her dad washes his own clothes. They, interchange. Sometimes he cooks, sometimes, she washes dishes and that kind of thing. Just no gender roles. And then she was telling this story. I don't know if it's gonna come up. Yeah, I've listened to so many of her stories. I don't even know where I picked this one up. But she was talking about how sometimes they'd just be at home and then he'd be like, we don't want to cook. And then they'd just go and like buy food. Sometimes they'd be out at a restaurant and while he's ordering his alcohol, she's drinking whatever she's drinking. And that was it. Like, come on. This sounds like a good childhood, right? She said she was her dad's handbag. Everywhere he went, they went together. Like, they were friends. They were boys. Even now, I don't know why you call it boys, but like, yeah, even now she says they just hang out and they talk. And, like, dude, how many people who grew up in two-parent households can say this about their dad? Show of hands. How many can even say it maybe about their moms? I think it's easier for moms somehow. It's just easier for moms. But how many people can say this about their dads? Like, what are we doing? How do we convince somebody that is a broken situation, that there was something wrong and missing in her childhood when she had that? People don't even have that with their parents. How many people can say that they were friends with their parents? That they would just hang out and talk when they were kids? And even now, how many people can say that? How did we convince somebody like Njeri Migwi and others like her that they came from a situation of brokenness, that there was something wrong with how they grew up? What? Also that we can, fit this patriarchal structure and picture this very arbitrary, rooted in oppression, rooted in just control and abuse picture. What? Like, I cannot even with how stupid we are as a society. Like, we're so fucking dumb. This was a good setup and a wonderful setup. What is our problem? I can't.
And so we started living together.
Yeah.
And because it was a marriage that wasn't foundationally sound, and so there was abuse. And when abuse, I mean a slap here and there, a popo thrown on your face here and there, a few things but it went on. But there was a lot of verbal abuse, minimizing.
You know what's interesting to me? How she says, because it was a marriage that was not foundationally sound, so there was abuse. Like, the abuse was a product of the fact that the marriage was not foundationally sound. I really do not think that. I do not think that. I think that abuse is baked into marriage the way that it is. Abuse is just, it's part of patriarchal marriage. There's no marriage, I think, that is in this patriarchal structure and that continues to value the hierarchies that patriarchy has in place that is free from abuse. That's the thing, I think. It doesn't matter how foundationally sound you think your marriage is, as long as it continues to uphold these patriarchal values, and it's happening in this patriarchal society. So, like, those two things, it's happening in this patriarchal society, and you continue to uphold those patriarchal values. There's no way for that marriage not to have abuse at all. To the extent that it does not have abuse, that is the exception. That is the strangeness of it. It's not the presence of abuse that is strange, that is an aberration. It's the absence of it in patriarchal marriage that is surprising. That would be surprising to me, because any relationship that has these kinds of internal hierarchies about who is superior and who is inferior, who is the leader and who is the subordinate, any relationship that has that is going to have abuses just baked into it. It just is. So even if he doesn't slap you, you have a relationship where he has his ways, where he is the final authority. And how many times do we hear this, particularly from Christians, right? And I can speak about Christians because I used to be one, and I was one for a long time, and embarrassingly long, a long time. Yeah. I mean, we hear this from Christians all the time. Oh, the man is the head of the home. Like, y'all can discuss things, yeah, because, he's not like a complete tyrant. You can discuss things, but then the final decision lies with him. The final authority lies with him. This is just ripe for abuse. to the extent that there's no abuse in a patriarchal relationship, in a relationship that is within this patriarchal bounds, to the extent that there's no abuse, that's what's surprising. It's not the presence of abuse. I do not know that there's a way for a relationship to be foundationally sound enough to guard against abuse and other kinds of abuses of power, except that the people in there no longer uphold, no longer, value the things that we have been told to value by patriarchy, such as the hierarchies, the gender hierarchies, and things like gender roles, which are really a product of, a perception of gender in hierarchical sense. Am I making sense? Anyway, that's what I think. I think that abuse has nothing to do with whether the relationship was foundationally sound or not. I think it's just in patriarchal society where there are hierarchies and power rests with essentially the man, it's always ripe for abuse. If abuse is not happening, that's what's strange. Not the happening of abuse. Abuse is it's like the most normal thing about patriarchal relationship. It's like literally the most normal thing. If I hear a couple does not have any kind of, abuses of power, any kind of, power imbalances in their relationship, that's when I'm like, oh wait, how are y'all doing that? Like, that is so strange. The heteros, it's baked into it, quite unfortunately. It's baked into it.
What would he say?
Oh. Whoa, first of all, honestly, and I'm saying this with all sincerity, and I know this may not sound big, but in this marriage, I knew I was the ugliest human being, and I was living with him as a favor. And he made sure that is what he told me every day. I mean, I don't know whether you understand waking up and somebody telling you, Manze siwe ni ugly. God, you're so ugly. I've never seen such an ugly person in my entire life. I'm doing you a favor staying with you. And so I believed him. I really believed I was ugly. I never used to look at the mirror. I still have a very skewed relationship with the mirror because I'm always like, Njeri ni mzee, lakini. So anyway, so that was it. And he made it a call and I believed him. And if anybody told me you're beautiful, I'd be so, of course, they're not talking to me. They're obviously talking to someone else, who is beautiful here.
Because words have power.
Because words have, and this is somebody who I stayed with from 16 until I was 30.
For 14 years?
Yes.
For 14 years?
Yes.
I think one of the things that I'm learning, and that is becoming, that I think I'm beginning to internalize, as much as I internalize all of the other patriarchal lies that we hear about abuse and the women who find themselves in this abusive situation, is one of the things that I am beginning to truly internalize is the way that abuse fucks with you, right? Like it messes your perception of yourself. It messes with the way you think about yourself. Like it destroys you in so many ways. Like it destroys you. So she probably used to think she was beautiful before this, and by the end of it, by the time he's done with her, he's destroyed that completely. He's brought her to a place where she believes his lies. She believes the hurtful things he tells her. And I don't know if this is the one where she says, faith comes by hearing. And, that one stuck with me. If someone is telling you something about yourself every day, how ugly you are, how dumb you are, how stupid you are, how nobody will ever want you, how they're doing you a favor by being with you, like all of these things that abusive men will tell you, how, I saw in one instance, this guy would tell her how everyone just pretends to like her, no one really likes her. And you begin to believe these things, and this is how they tear you down, how they just destroy your sense of self until you're not the person that you were when you were getting into this relationship. And so I'm beginning to understand that the reason one of the reasons women stay in these situations is because you've been broken down and destroyed so completely, and now you're no longer the person that you used to be. Now, potentially the person that you used to be in the beginning would have been like, fuck this nigga, I'm out, right? But then, after years and years of being broken down and destroyed, you're not even the person that you used to be. So now, you're this person that he has fashioned, who he can control and like keep in his orbit, essentially. And we need to keep this in mind every time we're talking about women who are in these situations. They have been broken down. They have been destroyed. They have been fashioned into this thing that he can control. And so, to the extent that he's succeeding in controlling them and keeping them in his orbit, it's not a statement about these women as much as it is a statement about him and what he has done. Right? And so that's, it feels to me like that's the question we need to keep asking. What did he do to her? Not why is she staying, but what did he do to her? How did he make her this person? How has he made you into this person that puts up with these things? Because we have seen women who, in the beginning when they were getting into a relationship would have never put up with certain things, and then by the end of it, they are. And even they are like, what was that? And it's because, in a lot of ways, that was not you. That was you after being broken down and fashioned into the person that he can control.
I was sad. I didn't have friends. First of all, I wasn't allowed friends. His family was my friend. And I wasn't seeing my dad as much because I don't know how I got excluded from having friendships. It was either church, work, home. That was it. That was the extent of my life. I had a driver. I had a bodyguard. Yeah, so it's not like I could come and have coffee with you. They'll go back and report me.
It's really interesting how she says even she doesn't know how she ended up so isolated, that she didn't even have friends, wasn't hanging out with her dad that much. This is how abusers work. Like, you don't even know how things ended up this bad. And so this is why we need to not be talking about these women at all. Like, it's not about what they're doing. It's about what he's doing. How is it possible that she ended up this isolated and she doesn't even know how he did it? We need to be talking about abusers and what they're doing. That's what we need to be talking about. Abusers and what they're doing.
And this is somebody, I remember I went to Hong Kong once. I just flew to Hong Kong. He saw me off at the airport here in Kenya, and I landed in Hong Kong and I found him waiting for me. Do you know how scared I was of him? I was terrified of this man because he would appear anywhere. It's like just magic. Lynn, I used to be terrified. I was so scared.
It's very sad. It's very sad how, women just end up in these situations where they're terrorized and they're constantly living in fear. And then you have all of these people who are working with this abuser to keep you in that situation, to keep you surveilled. So she said she had like a bodyguard, right? And I guess if you're like a person who read Mills and Boone, you think, oh, it's so cute, like protection. And it's not protection. What it is surveillance. It's somebody to watch you and go and report. And I cannot believe. I don't know. I remain shocked at the number of people and the way our systems are set up to just support abusers in their abuse of you. Like, he has somebody who is paid to report to him the things that you're doing. Oh, she met this person. Oh, she went here. Oh, she did this. And she was there for half an hour. And this was what she was wearing. Oh, and then she disappeared for 5 minutes. She went to the bathroom. I don't know what she did at that point. What? This person was taking a paycheck. And obviously was a man to surveil this woman. And then, still on Mills and Boone type things, we're socialized to believe that rich men are where it's at. And this one took me a while to get to it. But as soon as I became of reasonable adult age, it became clear to me that this lie that rich men are the better choice, it's a lie. It's a lie. Let me tell you, say whatever else you want to say about poor men. There's no universe in which you fly to some place and then you get there and they took like a direct flight to that place and you find them there. There's no poor men who like have people on their payroll who are surveilling you. Now, I am not suggesting that poor men are safer or like, than rich men. I'm just saying this rich men a safer story, it's a lie. It's a lie. Rich men are dangerous. Men are dangerous as it were under patriarchy because of all of the power that patriarchy gives them. And just this, how it highly ranks them hierarchically above women. Men just have power under the patriarchy. And when you add financial power to that, the power imbalance between you and them just skyrockets, right? Now it's massive. This man can do almost anything to you. How do you take this man to the police? I once read this book about this woman who was in an abusive relationship in this country with like a white guy. She would go to the police to report and she'd get there and they've already been paid off by him. Rich men are only good and desirable in Mills and Boon novels, to the extent that they are, because even the ones in Mills and Boon novels, when you look at them now, you're like, ooh, red flags everywhere, just red flags.
I can't even start explaining how scared I was because I didn't know when he would appear. So it's not like I could go out and have friends. This is somebody who I would find waiting for me outside of church. Just anywhere, anything. Like, let's say I'm meeting an old friend and then he would be like, where are you? And if I say a lie, he would tell me, I can see you. So I was completely terrified.
He had people following you around.
I don't know, but he just put the fear of God in me.
Yes.
To even look at other people, I think, I don't know. I was his property. So
he called the committee.
Yeah, so they came and they spoke to me, and then I agreed to give birth. And then
the committee is for you to give birth.
Yeah. What did you think?
I'm like, so this committee is for you now
to
give
convince
birth.
me. And I knew it was a bad. Well, so I gave birth. So I got pregnant the first time. And because we had all these scuffles, he beat me up. And I lost the first pregnancy. Yeah.
What? Oh, whoa. Hey, that is sad. We hear about the fact that abuse sort of sometimes begins during pregnancy or really escalates during pregnancy. Did he beat her up so bad she lost a baby?
And how many kids do you have at this point?
First,
yes,
he wanted another kid. But you know that thing that you had in the back of your mind that tells you do not get another child?
Don't.
Have one child that you know if shit goes south,
yes,
you can take care of this child?
Yeah.
So I stayed 10 years before getting another child. I was afraid. I was like, so he called a committee. He called my mother, he called his mother, he called my church people. And I came home and I found people in my house waiting for me. And they were like, why don't you want to have another child?
And seeing your mother in the committee and knowing that she left, how was that like for you?
Hurtful. And then subsequently I got pregnant again. And I lost it too because vita tu za hapa na pale. Then the third pregnancy, I was 7 months pregnant when he beat me. And he left the country. And that night I started labor pains. And I was taken to hospital. I was 28 weeks pregnant. And 3 days of labor, 3 days of trying to save this baby. But she came and she fought. We were in ICU for a long time. He didn't come. He didn't show up. I was in hospital by myself with, yeah. And Papa survived. She was 925 grams when she was born. She had a hole in her heart, and she had ARDS, and she stayed in hospital for a long time. He came after 2 months, and he didn't come to hospital. He didn't come to hospital. He was just somewhere. He said he was afraid of coming to hospital. Lynn, I had held this baby and myself together. I don't know how hard, ICU can be. I refused to go home, so I stayed at Mata. And he didn't come. And of all the things he has ever done to me, that hurts the most.
I mean, it remains shocking to me how all of society is geared around making sure men get what they want. Njeri, at this point, doesn't want another child, right? She's afraid of having another child. Like, everything in her body and her spirit instinctively is telling her, don't do it, right? So she's 10 years, no other kid. And then he calls a committee of his mother, her mother, people from church to come and pressure her into having a kid. And these people, like somebody like his mother, for example, knows that there's been violence. I can't speak for everybody else in the committee, including her mother. I don't know if she knows about the violence, but his mother, at the very least, knows that there's been violence. Has an idea about why Njeri might not want to have another kid. All these people, I wonder, did they ask her why she didn't want another kid? Did they ask her if she wanted another child? I highly doubt it. It was, he brings a committee, he's the man, he has the money, and it's like, yeah, I mean, he wants a kid. I bet the church people were there saying stupid shit like, okay, maybe not stupid shit. Saying things like, God wants, you to have an abundance of children, like children are God's blessings, da-da-da. Did anybody ask her why she didn't want more kids? Did anybody ask her if she even wanted more kids? All of society, all of it, is geared towards just giving men what they want. All kinds of men, even abusive men, all of society, just geared towards giving them what they want. Meeting their needs, prioritizing them in every way that a group of people can be prioritized. All of society works towards prioritizing them. And then, so I sort of interchanged those clips accidentally, I'm sorry. And then she gets pregnant, and because of his violence, she loses the baby. She gets pregnant again, and because of his violence, she loses the baby. Twice. This is a man who brought a committee talking about how he wants more kids. She's lost 2 children because of his violence. 2 pregnancies, because of his violence. And then she gets pregnant a 3rd time. He beats her up, right? And then she goes into premature labor. She's in hospital for a long period of time. He doesn't show up not one time. Their baby is born with a heart defect. He doesn't show up. This is the motherfucker that called a committee talking about how he wants more kids. He wants her to produce more kids. I think an important lesson to learn, particularly when it comes to men, is you do not believe anything they say. You believe nothing they say. You only believe what they do. You only believe what they do. This person says he wants more kids. Okay. How is he acting with the kids that we already have? Or this person says, he's going to try again. He values this marriage and he wants it to work. Can you name one thing he has done? Can you name just one thing he has done, right, that says he values this marriage? Oh, oh, this person says, things like, oh, he's changed, da da da. Name one way that he's changed. One significant way that he's changed. Don't believe anything mentally. You don't believe anything they tell you. He wants more kids. Does he change the diapers currently of the kid you have? Is he a present father to the child you have? Oh, he wants more kids. How is he treating the mother of his existing kid? Beating you up? Oh, wait. Does that sound like somebody who values kids? If you're beating up your kid's mom, do you value that child? Even a little bit? Do you care about that child? If you're harming their parent, their primary parent, do you care about them? And if he doesn't care about this existing kid, what makes you think he's going to care about any other kids that you produce? Fuck men. Fuck 'em, fuck 'em, fuck men.
After the 2 miscarriages, it was very hard for me to give birth. And so I remember just lying on the floor of church and praying and asking God, give me a baby, because I was being beaten for not having a baby either. So I was just praying to God and just telling God, God, please give me a baby. I remember washing the church and just crying and praying and telling God, God, give me a baby. I don't know if you've ever prayed scriptures, because I remember praying scriptures. I remember just telling God, just the way you remembered Hannah, just remember me. And here is the baby. And I thought I would go home with this baby, and the baby's dead. And I lost my mind. And they had to walk me back and show me the baby is here. She's not dead. She fought and she lived. Topaz is 16 now.
Yeah, she's 16.
Yes. She's my child of grace.
You know what's interesting to me? One thing that's interesting to me about this clip is she talks about going to church and crying over there and cleaning the church and all of that. And I'm wondering, when people are doing this in church, does the pastor ask you what's going on? Do they care? Because it doesn't feel to me like they do. It feels to me like the worse people's lives are, the better the church is. Because people, that's where people go when they're in trouble. That's where people go when things are really bad. So, everything is falling apart in your life. Your abusive husband is beating you up because you're not pregnant and because, just because he enjoys that kind of thing. And you go to this church and you're crying and you're cleaning. So you're giving them a service, a free service. And for people who have money, you're just giving all of your money. God wants you to give. God is moving my heart to give. God is touching me to give. Oh, I'm making a sacrifice. Oh, I'm laying down a seed. Oh, I'm trusting God. I'm doing that. It almost feels like it's in the best interest of the church for people's lives to be really bad. Like they benefit more when things are really bad in people's lives than when they're good. And if that's the case, then people really need to rethink their relationship with this entity. If you have an entity that does really well when you're doing really bad, there's reason to be concerned. There's reason to be concerned. And lest I sound like I'm being too critical of the church, I think that this is not the church Jesus would have wanted. This is not the church Jesus would have set up. Jesus was about setting the captives free, not benefiting from the captives. Jesus was about healing the sick, feeding the hungry. That's what he was doing. That's what he was doing. He went around doing good. That's what he was doing. Like, I don't want to talk about anybody else. I just want to talk about Jesus, right? Because you're supposed to be Christians. You're supposed to be following Jesus, not Paul, not Peter, not none of that. You're supposed to be following Jesus. What was Jesus doing? He was making the lives of the people who came across him better. Well, except, in the case of people like Pharisees and rich men, in which case, fuck them, right? But the rest of them, he was the one who was giving. He wasn't the one who was taking. He wasn't the one who was taken. And I just, for the most part, he was just alleviating people's suffering. That's what he was doing. And when he took, I'm thinking about instances where Jesus took, and what did he took? He let Mary Magdalene anoint his feet because he was going to die. I think it was Mary Magdalene, I'm not sure who. Like, it's been a long time. That one time they borrowed a donkey, but they took it back. And this was Jesus. Like, he didn't even have shit. When they needed a donkey, they had to borrow one. And it's very sad when you have a church that capitalizes on people's suffering, that benefits from the suffering of others. That is not a church. I don't know what that is. It's a pest. It's a parasite. It's just, no. No, the church is supposed to be a place of comfort. It's supposed to be a place of refuge, not a place that takes advantage of you when you're weak, when you're low. And that's what the church is now. Like, I wonder if anyone ever asked her. Because if somebody had, and she had felt the pressure, the way people feel the pressure to tell the truth when they're in church or when they're talking to a man of God, and she just said, my husband is beating me up because I don't have kids, because I don't have another kid, because I'm not pregnant again. Then maybe they would have said, oh fuck, we need to get you out of there. Anyway, it's sad.
And I was at the gym because I had to maintain a certain size.
Yes. Yeah.
There's this idea you have money. You can have money, but you don't have money. By that I mean you can have actual money, but si yako. Hizi pesa si zako. This money belongs to him. You are just there. You are the wife who manages the companies, everything. But the money is not yours. I really didn't have money, Lynn.
Yeah.
I just looked like I had money. If I wanted shopping, I would be taken to London and would do shopping, things around that. Yeah. But I didn't have physical money.
You had nothing for yourself.
No. And then I was just good. Hey, Manzelina, I was a good wife. My wife material was me.
Eric.
Unapewa pesa. Even 10 million. I go shopping for things for the shops.
Yes.
And I would never touch a cent. I am the kind of person who would come with books. I took a taxi from here to the airport to here. I ate 35 shillings. I was that kind of a person. I honestly had so much integrity. Because that's what my dad taught me.
Yes.
That unajua vile watu sema unachukua kidogo unajiwekea. I honestly thought we were building something for our children. So why would I take the money?
It's interesting how she glides really quickly past she had to maintain a certain weight thing. And like, because that too is abuse, right? That too is abuse. And I don't know that many people, and many women in particular, think of it like that. There's just this pressure to maintain a certain weight because men are visual and all of that. And so even if your partner is pressuring you to maintain a certain weight, in your head, you may think it's just because men are visual and he likes me at this size or whatever. But that too is abuse. That is control. And it's very sad. It's very sad, the level of control that this man had in her life. They work together at this entity, and she thinks they're building something together for their kids, but it's all his. It's his money. Like, if she wants things, they're bought for her, but it's his money. And I think this is many women's lives, so many women's lives. It's his money. It's his house. It's his land. Even worse, sometimes it's his kids.
And I didn't miss anything. If I wanted, things, I would get them.
Yes.
Plus, anyway, I was already ugly, so I wasn't going to struggle with a lot of things. Yeah.
I truly think any man who loves you or cares about you even a little bit, and who you're in, sort of romantic partnership with, and especially when it's this serious where it's legal, and you're married, if he loves you, if he is legitimately, genuinely a good man, he will have things in your name. He will have, and he's the rich one here. Obviously, he's the rich one here. Or even if both of you are rich. But, particularly if he's the rich one, if the money belongs to him, he will have things in your name. If you're working on the business together, it will be both of your names on that business. If you're a housewife, for example, right? I heard about a man who had his wife on a pension, right? Like her own money, because of the contributions that she was making to the household. Apart from the money that they hold together and they share, like there's money that's yours. There's money that's yours. There's an account that has money that's yours. There's a potential thing like a prenup in place that says if this goes to hell, this is yours. And you make it when things are good, when you do not hate each other's guts, when you still, have all these fun feelings and you love each other. You make it then. If you're with somebody and they're the rich person and you do not have any financial security in place, particularly financial security that he knows about and that he took part in making and contributes to, because you could have some hidden money. I'm not talking about none of that. I'm talking about the ones that he knows about, that he supports, that he contributes to. If you don't have that, then you do not have a good man. You do not have a good relationship. You don't. Because relationships end all the time. And if there's no contingencies put in place of, in the event that this ends badly, if it just ends badly for whatever reason, I want you to be safe. And here's how I want you to be safe. Here are some things that I'm ready and willing to do to make sure you're safe. If you don't have that, what are we doing?
Anyway, so fast forward that. And after that, we moved to, there's Runda, and then there's Roslyn.
Yes.
So we moved to Roslyn. Yeah, so we moved to Roslyn. Yeah. Roslyn is
kidogo up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We moved there. Yeah. The kids were in good schools. Everything was going well.
Yeah.
We were really young. I'm talking about people who are not yet even in, me, I wasn't even 30. We are living in Roslyn. We are the people who nowadays you call couple goals.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
you were couple goals.
We were couple goals. I was traveling all over the world,
shopping,
buying things
cars.
For the shops, for the business. We had shops here in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Uganda. We were doing well.
Yeah.
I was so sadly. I had no friends. The only friend I had was probably Jesus. And when I was being beaten, Jesus wasn't there. But yeah.
Woo! She said it. Oh my God. She said it. The only friend she had was Jesus. And when she was being beaten, Jesus wasn't there. He wasn't there. Shit. I mean, can we just clap for this woman at this point?
I had no friends. The only friend I had was probably Jesus. And when I was being beaten, Jesus wasn't there.
Viva.
Anyway, so pushback.
Yeah.
2 years later, we are living in Kileleshwa. We are doing good, impeccably well. And my mom asked me for money. Now I'm working with him.
Yes.
And I wasn't getting paid, so I didn't have money. My mom needed some money. And because, you want to give your mom things. I went into the safe. There was a lot of money. And I was like, nobody will know. I was traveling to China. So I was like, who would know if I removed 10,000? Like if you remove 10,000 out of 10 million, nani anaweza jua? I removed 10,000. I gave it to my mom. And I was at the gym because I had to maintain a certain size.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He found out I took the 10,000. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know that he counted the money. I was in the gym. He told me, come home now. So I went home. Lynn, nilichapwa vita. It was so bad. My child was in the room, so she saw. But I was unconscious. And so he was so scared that he had killed me. That is how bad it was. That he put me in a bathtub with water and left, closed the house, and drove away. So if I was to die,
They would say you drowned.
they would say I drowned.
Wow. The thing about abuse is it escalates. Abuse escalates. She said when it started, it was a slap here, a slap there. Now he's beaten her up so bad, she's passed out, and he's afraid he's killed her. So he puts her in a bathtub full of water so that it looks like she drowned. Like, abuse escalates. It never goes in the opposite direction. It escalates.
But my housemaid found me, tried to wake me up and revive me. Somehow that day my son wasn't in school and my daughter was screaming in our room. And when he hit me and I fell on the dresser. And the dresser our bedroom had marble furniture.
Yes.
Yeah? So I fell. You know, marble is like stone. So when I fell, I was unconscious for a very long time. So my house girl, she's called Maggie. She called my mother. And my mother came. And my mother was like, we are living with you now. And that is when he walked in. Lynn, if you saw that room, it was full of blood. There was blood. I don't know how blood got to the ceiling, but there was blood. And my mother saw it, and my mother was like, Njeri, we are living with you now. I'm not leaving you behind. Pack your children, we are going. So he walked in.
Yeah.
And he told my mother, let me speak to her. I don't know Lynn, but he convinced me to stay. I look back and I'm like, that is the day I should have gone. But I didn't go. He somehow managed to convince me. And he apologized and, and he was so apologetic. He was on his knees and was like, this is the father of my children. Where am I going? Why is he I don't know, Lynn. I just stayed. And, we went, nikabaiwa gari, I bought a brand new BMW, X5 baby. And yeah.
Another reminder about how abuse works. How she says she doesn't know how, but he convinced her to stay. Like, I do not know how, but he convinced me to stay. This is why we need to take abuse very seriously, especially as I think people on the outside. And this is why we need to be so empathetic where the women are concerned. Because even they do not know what is happening. Even they cannot explain how they're staying, how they're being convinced to put up with it. Like, nobody can understand it. Not even them. This is so sad. This is it just reminds me about why Bancroft says you need to leave abusers early, because the longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. Let me just see if I can find the clip. Because it's so, how she says even she didn't understand. This is how abuse works. They break you down until even you do not know what is happening.
The more deeply involved you become with an intimidating man, the more difficult it will be to get out of the relationship. Unfortunately, many women believe just the opposite. They think, well, he does scare me a little sometimes, but I'll wait and see if it gets worse, and I'll leave him if it does. But getting away from someone who has become frightening is much more complicated than most people realize, and it gets harder with each day that passes. Don't wait around to see.
This is why you need to leave early. This is why you need to leave early, because we do not understand. We do not understand how they do that, how they break you down like that. We don't get it. And that should be like one of the most frightening parts of it. Just whatever techniques they're using to control and manipulate you. Leave early. Leave as soon as he threatens you. The first day he threatens you, that's the day you leave.
The last time he beat me so badly. I don't even remember what you were asking. We were in the bathroom. Yeah, I think I was brushing my teeth. And he asked me something about the shop. Or somebody had come to the shop and said I was beautiful. And somehow he had informers who would tell him things like those. So he said, baba wako amekuja kwa duka. And this is a fit man who was boxing. Lynn, nilichapwa. I don't hear from this year. So we went, so now I couldn't hear. So, when 1 year is hurt, even the other year wasn't compensating. So I couldn't hear for like 24 hours. So he had to take me to hospital. And the doctor is telling me what happened. I fell in the bathtub. And all this time I'm being beaten because sitaki aibu. You don't want the neighbors to hear. I never screamed. I never used to scream. So ulikuwa unanichapa na like that. Because I don't, which neighborhoods are this? You're screaming like a mad woman. So you're just taking it all in, like that. So nobody knew. So he carried me because I was really small then and took me to his car and drove me to the hospital, Upper Village Market. And the doctor is telling me now when we're in the curtains, do you need help? But I am so scared of this man. I don't want to tell him. My ear is bleeding. I'm really telling the doctor. He's telling me, I can help you. I can help you run. Because this man is going to kill you.
Hi.
But I'm like, this man has a gun. He's going to shoot me. So I'm looking at him shooting me and the doctor, and I'm thinking, where can I hide?
Yeah.
And so the doctor treated me and
Yes.
I lost hearing
Yeah.
on this year.
Yeah.
There's something very encouraging about the fact that that doctor was able to pick up that this was a domestic violence situation. I used to imagine that this is how it works, that all kinds of professionals are trained to sort of pick up on the signs that there's something going on at home. And I suspect part of it is watching shows like, I think it was called Boston Public when I was a kid, and there was this teacher called Harry Sennett, and the principal, I don't remember his name, but later on he was doing something on Hawaii Five-0. And I remember seeing the two of them. And then I was watching this at about the same time I was watching that Maxine show. What was it called? Where she was a social worker. Judging Amy. So I was watching these things at around the same time. And so in my head, I'm imagining there's all these kinds of professionals who are trained to pick up on these things. So, teachers can tell if a child is struggling in a way that suggests something is going on at home. And doctors have been trained, and when you come to them and you have certain kinds of injuries, they're going to ask you questions. They're going to offer you help, like this doctor saying, I can help you run. And then you grow up and you realize, this is just TV. This is literally just TV. Teachers do not have any training to be able to pick up on this. Doctors do not have any kind of training to pick up on that. And to the extent that they do, they probably don't care. Policemen, policewomen do not have this kind of training at all. In the Sophia and Bumpy story, she goes to the police and the police who is attached to the child services desk tells her something like, mtarudiana tu. Yeah, you're just going to get back together. This thing, you people just do this. This is just all my lover's spats. You're just going to get back together. And you're like, wait, you're supposed to have been trained on this. And no. So, more power to this doctor for, picking up on it. And I wish we had all kinds of professionals trained to just pick this up, to see what's going on and to see the severity of it. I mean, even people in church, the church is the worst. Because I used to go to church. So the church is the worst, because these are the same people who are going to try and come and give you counseling when your husband is abusive. What counseling? No. What counseling? If they had any kind of training about domestic violence, they would realize there's no amount of counseling that's going to help or change a man who thinks like this. None. There's no amount of counseling that can change them. They get too many benefits from acting like this for them to just give it up. But, it doesn't occur to people in churches that they should get any kind of training about dealing with domestic violence. They just imagine that this is one of those forgiveness things and talking to someone things. And then women die. So yeah, I think we need to create in this society systems in place that are designed specifically to just benefit, to be able to identify what's going on and to offer assistance to women who are in these situations. And this is professionals of all kinds need to be getting this kind of training. Professionals of all kinds, all of them. It's also interesting to me how when the doctor offers her assistance, she says, Sasa, how can he help me? The guy has a gun. He's going to kill me and he's going to kill you. Like, you can't help me. The guy has a gun. And this is another way that abuse works. Another reason that women are not able to take the assistance that's offered, especially when that assistance does not take into account the kind of situation they're coming from, the kind of fear that they're living in and under. So in this case, there's a gun in the mix. There's a gun. That changes the game. That changes how, you can respond, and that obviously affects the way that she responds. So, yeah, I think it's just important to keep that in mind.
Talk to me about Dad. You said you have a great relationship with Dad. Why were you not going to talk to him?
Because I was ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody. I became such an expert at doing makeup. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. What was I going to tell my dad? All the time my dad used to tell me, Njeri, you can leave. And all the time he would tell me, you guys are so poor. Where are you going? And there's that battle inside of yourself. Maybe I should just let my kids finish school and then I go.
I need to stay for my kids.
Let me stay for my kids. Mm-hmm. How am I going to support these kids? Yes. I had left formal employment. I was working for him. I had no savings.
No career of your own.
No career now of my own.
Yes.
And I remember let me tell you what snapped me out of this marriage. He just told me one day, just looked at me and said, you know what? You can't leave. You can't leave. Even if I came with this excavator and removed you from this house, you wouldn't leave. And I don't know why that triggered me. That day I just looked at him and I was like, is this man okay? This man doesn't even live in this house. He was living at what is this hotel at Village Market called?
At Tribe. Yeah, Tribe.
That's where he used to live. He used to just come home to change. And I would see receipts of him. I would see pictures of him with women. And I was like, why am I living like this? I mean, I don't care how poor we are. So what? And you know what? I left. I just left. I didn't even know that beyond Runda, when you come from Runda,
yeah.
I mean, Roslyn, if you drive down like this, now where I used to live, opposite they've built Roslyn Mall.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
My house was opposite Roslyn Mall. And I just came out. I didn't even know there was Rwaka. My friend, I was that protected, that naive. I just went down and I looked for a house. And I found a house in a place called Moshadha. And nikakomboa. Nikaanza kusema one by one, small things. I started buying myself stuff.
And you left with the kids?
No. The day he just told me that, I had already started buying myself things.
Yes.
In this a small house. So I was like, you know what, I'm leaving. I took my car, the one he bought for me, and I went. I didn't take his kids because I was like, if I take his kids now and I don't even have any prospects of a career, then how am I going to feed them? Let me go, get myself settled, and then come for my children.
Yeah.
So I left.
Oh.
And he came for his car, though. He did. I was shopping at Nakumat. There was a Nakumat in the middle of town. And I parked the car. I was just shopping for my house. And when I came out, now I was starting to look for clients because I was doing interior design.
Yeah.
When I came out, alikuwa ashakuja na akabeba gari na, what is this called? AA. So I'm looking for the car and the other cars because where is the car? Like, how? Gari naenda. And this man just came and took the car and he left. And yeah.
Like Like there's no telling the final straw that breaks the camel's back. Like he said that to her and she was like, ooh, this nigga trifling. Like, what is wrong with this man? And then she left. But it's interesting to me. I keep saying it's interesting. Well, because it is interesting. But anyway, yeah. So it's it's interesting to me how she talks about some of the reasons she stayed. So like for her kids, like you want your kids to finish school, right? And these are the kinds of motherfuckers who you leave and then they stop paying school fees. And these are real considerations that women have to take into account. And I think that as long as we continue to ignore the math that women are doing when they're having to make these very difficult decisions, the longer we continue to ignore them, the more we cannot offer solutions that work for these women. In another interview, she sort of goes into the process of living, and she says she had this friend. I think she was called Pastor Stella, and Pastor Stella asked her, what do you need? How can I help? And I think these are the questions we need to keep asking women who are in these situations. What do you need? How can we help? Because so something like this school fee issue, right? She was thinking about making sure her kids finish school. One thing that we could do potentially, like on a legal level basis, is have it in place that if parents separate, then the person who has been paying for all those things must continue to pay for them until the kids finish school or whatever it is, and they must maintain that standard of living that the kids have become accustomed to. So if the children were in this international school, then they must stay in that international school even when you leave, like legally, right? If he's the one who pays for the food and the housing and blah blah blah, whatever contribution he makes to this kids' lives, he has to continue to make it even after you leave him. Like, these are the things that we need to have in place that potentially would help women to live. Because just imagine if we had such a law in the books, then you do not need to do that calculus of, I need to stay for my kids because then maybe he won't pay fee. What do you mean maybe he won't pay fee? He'll pay it. He'll have to pay it, like, legally speaking. So, yeah, I think we just need to listen to these women and to believe some of the things that they say about where they stay. So, and the reason I'm saying some of the things is because, if somebody says they're staying because they love that man, like, what are we supposed to do with that? But if you say you're staying because you're afraid of the condition in which your kids are going to have to be raised after you leave, we can work on that. That we can do some with that. So, yeah, that's what that means.
And after like 2 years, he said he's not paying school fees. So here I am with a child who does not even know how to speak a word of Swahili, who only knows international schools, and there is no school fees. And a sick child to boot, huh?
Holy cow. I did not know about that. I promise you, I did not know about that part. Like, I was just talking. Woo-wee. Of course he said he wasn't going to pay fee. Of course he said he wasn't going to pay fee. Niggas only care about the kids when they have access to the mom. That's it. Like, if they're not fucking you, then there's no reason to pay for your damn kids. Oh my God. And this is a nigga with money. And once again, what are we told about men with money? Oh, you need a man with money. Oh, you need to do that calculus of he's going to take care of your kids. This is a nigga with money. This is a nigga with money. He doesn't give one fuck about his kids. Not a single fuck to be seen anywhere. Ooh, hey, like even men will show you. Let me tell you, also men's parents, I cannot with them. Men's parents are they're motherfucking trash. Because, listen, it's one thing for your kid to be an asshole, to be a total asshole who won't pay his kids' fees. That's fine. What about you? Because, like, they're rich motherfuckers. They were rich motherfuckers. Why didn't they pay for their grandkids' school fee? They know what schools the kids are in. All they had to do was call Njeri or call Njeri's dad and say, okay, tell your girl, we'll be paying the school fee directly to school, and we'll support her, in whatever other things the kids needs, like, I don't know, uniforms and expensive shit like that. And yeah, I mean, it's not like the school only accepts money from their son. The school would take money from them. Like, abusers are just surrounded by people who just support their abuse. It's so fucking nuts. It's so fucking nuts. And all of our systems are designed to support that as well. Because why do we have a system that does not compel them to continue to care for their kids? At least if they were paying before, then we know they can pay, so they should keep paying. It's fucking nuts how abusers are just, everything in our society works to uphold abusers' abuse. All of it, all of our society is just designed to sustain them and their abuse.
And he was nowhere to be found.
And this is your cousin?
Yes. And so, nikachotwa. And when I mean nilichotwa, Lynn unachotagwa kila kitu mpaka kijiko. So I am here. I went into depression. I had nothing. Kachotwa tu. Endelea na nikakuwa homeless.
Are you trying to call him your husband?
No, I took the kids back.
To him?
Bro, aje sasa? We are going to live in the streets with the kids?
No, wachukue.
Nikarudisha. Kapeleka nikawacha kwa gate, nikamwambia manze, these are your kids too. Where jisort. So I was sleeping. I have my best friend is called Mahihi.
Yeah.
Naenda kwao nalala, then I would disappear. This chick had to look for me because I was so ashamed. I don't know why failure comes with shame. And so I would disappear. I would sleep under the bridge. I would sleep with a watchman. Then she would look for me. And I would still come on Facebook and make jokes. Meanwhile, I am dying. Nobody knew what was going through my life.
But in real life, you are crashing.
I would go to the office I had and sit with the watchman. Then they'll be like, mbona unataka kwenda home? I'm like, aje, sasa ni usiku, unataka nini nishikwe na hapa? Wewe tukae tu. Then I remember I would sleep in another friend's office. I would tell him I have work to do. I need to just use his office because I don't have an office for now. And I would sleep in his office. Thank you, Anjo. He didn't even know. I think I told him this year. I told him, remember the days I used to come here? I didn't have a place to sleep. Meanwhile, my friends are looking for me, and I do not also want them to know that I am the truth. So I'm hiding. I had 3 dresses, I remember. And then one day I sat down and I said, see, I have a father. I went home. Oh.
Like, I just, wow. Shame is a really big one. This isn't the first time she's speaking of shame. I think she spoke about shame, with the beatings. Ashamed to tell people, ashamed to leave. And then now there's the shame of failure, the shame of poverty. So the story is a cousin of hers, Alimrusha, and then, they did this job together. The guy disappeared with the money, and then auctioneers came for her and they took everything she had. When everything she started over with, she had to take the kids back to her husband. The kids had come to her. Like, I do not know why we have constructed society in such a stupid way. Because to the extent that many people succeed, a good part of it is luck. And yet we act like the people who fail or who are poor sort of deserve it. And everyone believes this, including themselves. And so there's this shame that comes with it. Like, in her case, like, it had nothing to do with her. Like, she did the right things. She did all of the working hard, all of that. And then somebody just swindled her. Somebody stole from her. And yet she's the one who's ashamed. The ways that we perceive people who are deemed as failures and the poor, the way we perceive them, says so much about us as a society. It's very sad. It's very sad because I think even just in terms of the way the world is, the worse we treat the poor people and the ones we consider failure, the worse the world is. The better we treat them, the better the world is for everybody, not just for them, for everyone. As long as there's this shame in being poor, this shame in failing, we will continue to have systems that exist to punish the people who have allegedly failed. And as long as our systems exist to punish people, then they don't exist to help. And because we could fail at any point, we could easily, at any point, become, counted among the masses of those who deserve to be punished. But if we have systems that support people, then we always move with the confidence that should something happen, we're going to be supported. And then you can leave. Like, you can actually leave, as in LIVE, because as long as there's this fear that you could slide into poverty at any moment, there's no leaving. There's just running on the hamster wheel and chasing and accumulation. There's no living. There's no life. I like how she says she remembered that she has a dad, but before that, just her friends were looking for her, and because of shame, she wouldn't take their help. And so she's sleeping on people's couches and in offices and sleeping in the house with a watchman. And how risky that is for women. Like, homelessness is terrible for everybody, but you do not want to be a homeless woman now or a homeless child. And that's why she took her kids back, because, whoa, that's too many compounding risk factors. It's so sad. And we have this picture of people who fail and people who are homeless and they're lazy, And like she wasn't any of that. And you look at her now and you just, what if she was the picture of homelessness and poverty? Would we act different? Would we have better policies in place? If we didn't think the homeless and the failures were beneath us, would we have, just better systems in place? Like, it's so sad. It's very sad, because you just look at her and it's like, she was homeless. And that's the kind of shit that could happen to anybody. Like, she just lost everything. Auctioneers came and they took it all. Oh my God. Like, I can't even. We have this picture of what failures are and homeless people are. And we just have this idea, this picture of somebody who we think deserves it. Remember, a while back, this interview of, I think was either an NTV or a Citizen journalist or a KTN journalist who was reporting during the pandemic, and she's become homeless and she lives on the streets, and you look at her and you just, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart. Like, it was just depression and like mental health problems from reporting on the pandemic. And now she shares this tent with a man who, it was implied heavily, uses her for sex. And they're both homeless, they're both on the streets, but it's somehow worse for her, because now, beyond being homeless on the streets, she's being sexually abused. It's so sad. I think I think we really need to change that picture in our heads that we have been socialized to perceive homeless people are, and failures are, and poor people as. We need to change that mental image if it's going to help us to care more and to work towards a society that takes care of people, that meets people's needs.
And then Monday I sat down and I said, see, I have a father. I went home.
Oh,
It's not that I didn't have a home. I had a home.
you went home.
And I went home. And I got home and I climbed the sofa and I slept for 3 days. I didn't wake up. My dad was like, okay. When I woke up, he asked me, Umerudi? Umerudi? Nini? Nikambe, Dad, I'm staying here with you. Tunakaa hapa, tunakaa huko. Mimi siendi, Nairobi sirudi. We are staying here. I'm going to become a farmer. My father said, nilikueducate ndio kuja kuwa farmer. With all this education, we are going back to Nairobi. What do you need? I said, I don't know, Dad. He said, we can go back. I can talk to Mr. Kaka. You can get your job back. He literally called my former boss. This is 10 years after I've left work. And my former boss was like, she was one of the best workers you've ever had. Tell her to come back.
Oh.
And I went.
Yeah.
I went.
Yeah.
My dad got me a house.
Yeah.
Got me, he got me a mattress, yeah? A mattress, a few clothes. He paid for my house. And I went back to Nairobi.
Yes.
Anyone who knows me will tell you, I have very few things to say about men that are good, to the extent that I have any. But Njeri's father, I cannot believe it. This is what it means to be a parent. This is what it means to be a parent. It doesn't end. It does not end. People often talk about how, 18 years, like you're a parent for 18 years. You're not a parent for 18 years. You're a parent forever. Forever. For as long as you're alive and your child is alive, you're a parent. She goes back home. She sleeps on the couch. Like, this is so emotional for me. I don't know why, but it just says, she goes back home. Her dad lets her sleep for 3 days. I almost said 12 days. Why? Her dad lets her sleep for 3 days. And then he says, what do you need? And he proceeds to provide the things that she needs. He calls her boss. He fucking calls her boss to see her former boss, to see if he'll give her a job. Like, dude, what? He calls her boss. She's like a fucking adult with 3 kids. 3 kids. And he calls her boss to see if he'll give her a job. And this is what it means to be a parent. This is what it means. And I cannot believe anybody tells this girl that she grew up in a broken home. I cannot believe anybody makes her feel like that was less of a situation. Like, what? I do not know how many parents would do this for you. They would tell you you're an adult. That's what they would say. You're an adult. Go back and do something. They would tell you you're an adult. You're grown. Gone out to a tattoo. Act like it. Except he doesn't do that. He takes care of her. He's a parent. He's like, what do you need? Goes back buys her clothes. Like, I can't. This is so... I cannot. It's... Oh, it moves me. Okay, that's it. No more crying. Next.
And we started living in we didn't even have a stove. Tulikuwa tunakulanga biku hizi za ginger na maji. And I would tell Topaz, do you want to go back home? And she's like, no, Mom, I'm okay. I'm okay here with you. You eat it. You do this. You eat in school. Because our school fees was paid.
Yeah.
You eat in school.
Come full.
Come full. We'll be okay, Mom. I didn't have money. I was still struggling.
like I can't believe the way she's raising this kid. Like I just like the parenting philosophy at play in her childhood and in the way that she's raising her kids. Because things were really bad at that time, right? She says they're drinking water and eating biscuits. And she says to the kid, do you want to go back to live with your dad? And the baby says no. And I really like how she's parenting these kids. And this is one of the things that's one of the worst things about abuse is how it takes away from your ability to be a good parent. How it takes away from your ability to be a present parent. So, I mean, you see it a lot with people who grow up in abusive homes, and they'll say something like they know it wasn't their mom's fault that their dad was, a total terrorist. But when you're a child, the only other adult is your mom. You expect her to do the adult thing and protect you, right? And stand up for you. But and that's what normal parents do. That's what a normal mother would do. But what an abuser does is he breaks you down so that he's abusing you, he's abusing your kids, and you never do the thing of being able to protect your kids. And so to your kids, and I've had people say this, they're like, there's a primary abuser who's the person who's abusing you, but then there's a secondary abuser who's letting them get away with it. And a lot of people perceive their moms like this. I think that's like the worst thing about abuse, that it takes away from you being a good parent. I feel like Njeri, knowing nothing about how she parented her kids when she was married, like, you are a better parent when you're away from an abuser. First of all, you're yourself. You're not living in fear and all this terror and intimidation. So, like, you're at least more relaxed, closer to being who you are. And it's different. You're a different person. Your kids are different people as well, because they're not living in that fear of what can happen at any point. And your relationship is better, right? Abuse is one of the worst things they do is that they fuck up your ability to be a good parent, and then they fuck up your relationship with your kids. They fuck it up proper. And this is one of the reasons why we, as a matter of agency, need to create systems that allow and support abusive women who have been abused as they leave. Because it not only fucks them up, it fucks up their kids, it fucks up their relationship, and it's really bad when it fucks up the relationship between the mother and the kid, because this is the only adult in their life, very likely. So if you fuck that up, you're taking almost everything away from this kid. Yeah.
I went back to work, and this man called my boss and told him he's going to shoot him if he doesn't release his wife. I have not been with you for 5 years. Why are you still threatening my life? Yeah.
At this point, had it ever occurred to you need to report this man?
No, I never reported. I never did. I was just, I don't know. I was just leaving. There's something called trauma bonding. Now that I work in GBV, that makes you sympathize. You have a bond with your abuser that is very hard to break.
They say abuse doesn't end just because you leave. And this story, this part of Njeri's story exemplifies that completely, because she'd left. They hadn't been together for 5 years, and still he calls her new boss and is like, yeah, you're gonna need to let my wife go or I'll kill you. And he, what else is he gonna do? I guess he lets her go. You think that just by leaving, abuse ends, and it doesn't. Abusers don't just let their victims go. They just don't. And that is another very scary part of abuse, because as people on the outside, we always just leave, as if that's gonna end it. It doesn't end it. So now what? right?
Oh, then he decided to commit me into a psychiatric ward. And so after I was treated for the suicide, I found myself in a psychiatric ward. Yeah? Do you know when you're not mad and you're in a place where people are
mad?
Yes. And you're trying to tell the people you are not mad.
Yes.
And nobody believes you.
Yes.
Because everyone there says they are not mad.
Oh, yeah. No one is mad in a mad center.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because you're here with mad. They're mad.
But you are not.
Like mwingine anakuchapa na kunyang'anya food. And you're just then, you're like, wow.
But sa hii reaction ndio wanaona ni wazimu.
Sasa ukifanya hivi pia daktari anakuletea dawa.
Oh.
I know they have to, So I was in the south wing of Avenue Hospital where they take
Yeah.
They are mad people. And so the doctor said, I'm depressed. And so they wanted to do EST, which is electroshock therapy. And I remember begging doctor, I knelt and I told him, look, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Don't do this. Don't do this to me. I am not mad. I'm not mad. Don't do the thing. Because I knew what it was. And I'm like, I swear, take my dad's number. No one knows I'm here. Just ask my dad if I'm mad. And my family doesn't know.
This is yet another way that all of society functions to support abusers in their actions. So she attempts suicide, and then he takes her after she leaves the hospital. He gets her committed to a psychiatric hospital. And what, like, this is one of the things that I don't know. Are these motherfuckers like reading from a handbook? Is there a course? Because this is a story that's been told 100 times, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. It used to happen all the time, at least in the US. I think in the 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s, something like that, like a while back. It used to happen all the time. Men would just get their wives committed to psychiatric hospitals, and it was a threat that they used to keep them under control because the women knew, oh, he could get me in there. Like, he could really get me committed. It's just, it's so freaky. Like, how do they let no reasonable system that understands the way abuse works and the fact that most abuse happens in the home and is perpetrated by men, by husbands against their wives. No system that takes that into account would allow any married man ever, anywhere to be the sole person bringing their wife to a psychiatric hospital. Like, dude, they would require the wife's mom, the wife's dad, like other people, her aunt, her uncles, not uncles, her aunt, somebody, anybody else from her family to corroborate this. How do you let a man just come and commit his wife alone, knowing what we know? Like, I'm not even like an active participant in this space, and I know that men have used psychiatric hospitals to control and abuse their wives. I know this. Like, I cannot believe this. Like, I cannot, oh my God, I cannot with men. I cannot with men and our society and the way we have structured it to just support men in all their activities, in all their abusive activities. Like, what? I can't even imagine. He gets her committed. And then we have to talk about the whole psychiatry as a branch of medicine thing. I remember, and this has just come back to me, and so it's very vague. I'm going to try and look up the story and sort of share it with you, because I even want to remind myself the story. It's been a while since I had it, but it was something like the New York Times was conducting some kind of investigation into psychiatric hospitals and psychiatric facilities. And they found that, sorry, there was someone at my door. So there was this story, the New York Times was conducting an investigation into psychiatric hospitals and mental institutions of that kind. And I think they were trying to find out how many people were there who did not have the kind of ailments that were required for them to be in there. And they found out, they came up with a number and they published it. And I think it was one particular psychiatric hospital that was under investigation. And so they were like, nah, we need you conduct. I remember. Okay, so I'm so sorry. Yeah, so they were conducting an investigation into the ways that these diagnoses are issued. You don't issue a diagnosis, do you? Okay, I'm gonna say issued, but it doesn't sound right. Let me say given. So they were conducting an investigation into the way these diagnoses are given, and they planted people to just be placed into the institutions, and the people went in and they were diagnosed, and these were people who were perfectly okay, and so they published their findings and the ways that all of these diagnoses, some of them are just pulled out of people's asses, and they have nothing to do with nothing. So then the particular psychiatric institution was like, no, conduct the test again, do it again, send those people, and we will let you know, we will be able to weed out the ones who are who have just been placed in for experimental purposes, and there's nothing like that. And the New York Times was like, okay, cool, let's do that. And then was it the following month or a few months later, the psychiatric facility reached out to the New York Times and they were like, okay, we found out that these people, these are the ones you planted, and the New York Times was like, we didn't plant nobody. We did not plant nobody. So who are those that you're saying were planted and there's nothing really wrong with them? And they were in the psychiatric facilities. So we need to just be very skeptical of this whole psychiatric thing. And remember that a good chunk of it has been used to just control people in just a slightly different way than we use prisons as a means of social control. We use these facilities in the same way. If somebody threatens to get you committed, that's a serious and a very scary threat. And interestingly, it's one that doesn't even need any kind of crime to be committed. So they could just say, you've been acting erratic or something, and it's like, oh fuck, you're in. It's very chilling the way that these types of mental health facilities have been used, particularly by abusers and by just men in general.
Doctor, he called my dad. My dad picked the call. My dad was like, my daughter is where? The person who brought him there is the abuser. I'm coming to pick my child. And that doctor, he passed on. He used to have a clinic at Posta, but he didn't do it. I'm so grateful I still have my sanity, because I don't know what would have happened if they shocked my brain. I don't know. But that's... So when I say I have a good dad, that's what I mean.
Good dad.
He stood for me in places. He came for me and removed me from hospital.
Yeah.
And so, and he helped me set up now the business I was telling you. Yes. The one I set up at Ngara, the cafe. Yeah. It was my dad's money.
That is chilling. It's chilling. It's chilling. It's frightening.
So then he removes his phone and he shows me the girl he's marrying. And bro, she was beautiful. He has good taste in women. Probably not the one. Probably the only one he didn't have good taste in marrying. But the other ones, then she was beautiful. And ananionyesha ananiambia, see who is replacing you? See how beautiful she is? Can you even? Sasa hiyo unajua you have no money, umechapa Lynn, hiyo wivi yako inanuka tu vitu zingine tu hata zi make sense. So wewe uko tu zile za wash. By the way, I told him she's very beautiful. Marry her and treat her better than you ever did to me. I actually told him that. I told him, when you marry her, treat her well.
Yeah.
Treat her well. He's like, she's pregnant. I'm like,
No, you're immune to these
hey,
things.
by the way, Lynn, I've gone through so much things. Me, by the way, there's nothing now that you can tell me that can hurt me. You can't. I've already been told the worst by somebody I thought I loved. Actually, no. Actually, I love this man for some weird reason. I did. I loved him incredibly too.
So I want to talk about the bit where when they talk, she says to him, treat her better than you treated me. The thing about abusers, and I don't know if we're ready to just grapple with that in the society where we just committed to seeing everything through Pollyanna glasses, and we're so obsessed with positive thinking and all of this positivity. Like we're so obsessed with that, and I don't know if we're ready to face the fact that abusers don't change. They don't change. Even Bancroft, who is busy working with abusers and trying to, I guess, get some positive progress from them, says abusers rarely change. Abusers don't change. Chuck Derry did this, and I'm gonna insert that clip here. I hope I remember to do it. He inserts this clip when he talks about this program that he had where they were working with men in an abuser program and sort of trying to teach them these important skills and get them to change all of that. And one time, he realizes it's not working, right? The skills he's teaching them, they're trying to use them to control the women even more. And so, he has them do this exercise where they write, where together as a group, they contribute, they share with him essentially, they share with him the benefits of abuse, and like, dude, it goes on and on and on, like the benefits of abuse, whole whiteboard. And then when it comes to the negative bits of it, it's like 5 things. And this is why abusers do not change. They can't change because the benefits far, far, far outweigh the costs. And so there's no incentive to change. Why would you change? Why would you fuck with a system that works? Right? We need to just stop with this positive thinking thing that we are committed to holding on to. Some people don't change, and abusers are one of those. Right? Everything can't just be positive thinking. It's all in the mind. The power of the secret. Like, no. Abusers do not change. They don't. They do not change.
And yeah. And so he dropped me in town. Remember, I'm living in that car house. And I was also doing a lot of charity work around cancer children in Kenyatta all this time. Because that's who I am. That's who you are. Every Thursday I would go to Kenyatta, see cancer children, Wadwani, spend time with them. And so somewhere along that route, I met a man. And this man was like, he came, we met, and yeah. And
the rest.
Hivyo tu. Akanishoe soja, unakaaje hapa kisoja? Si ukam tukae. Njeri nikasema ala. I was like, nangoja nini? Kwanza nilikuwa na nini ya kungoja? Mimi na mtoto wangu tukahama tukaenda kuishi.
Yes.
Me, I was a homosexual, bana. I just moved in with somebody because he had a house. Let's not even start lying to each other. Everybody has different decisions why this one, we just moved in. And so that's how I got married the second time. Hivyo tu. Tuingie tukaenda. Unaona tu vile nilimarika the first time?
Ndio hiyo again.
Ndio tena nilirepeat.
Yes.
Anyway, so I met this man. We got married. He went all the way home. We had a proper traditional Kikuyu wedding. We did all the things right. And we started living together. I took his children to be my kids.
Yeah. And you became a blended family.
And we became a blended family. But Lynn, you see, marriage is just marriage. It's just marriage. you did not get into this marriage for the right reasons.
Good.
Either party.
Good.
And so I don't even know this person.
Yes.
And yeah. And my happy marriage lasted for 2 years. And then I realized I do not know the person I have married.
You know, what stands out to me about this is she says, marriage is just marriage, and she hadn't gotten into it for the right reasons. What are the right reasons, friends? What are the right reasons? Because this seems to me like almost the best way to view marriage, right? In this society, the way that this society is currently structured, that seems to me like one of the better ways of perceiving it. She says, and I don't know if she goes into detail in this one, but she goes into detail in the Kalekye interview, and she says that they got into it for practical reasons. She needed a place to stay. She needed somebody with like a steady income, that kind of thing, like somebody to take care of her financially. And he had kids. He needed somebody to help take care of his children. Like, this seems to me like, a reasonable reason to get married. Like, what do we mean by the right reason? The right reason cannot be love. That's Okay. Let me not just besmirch the good name of love. I suppose that's maybe one of the right reasons. But why is this a wrong reason? Why is this a wrong reason? Because for a long time, this was why people got married. This marriage was practical in the sense, like, you thought through what are we each going to get from this, arrangement? How do I benefit? How do you benefit? Like, can we give each other these things? Right? Like, it was practical. And then now, people have been deceived, I think, into perceiving it purely as like this romantic thing where it's just purely feelings, and you do not think about how it's going to benefit you. And so you have an arrangement where men consistently benefit from having somebody do all of their domestic labor and the emotional labor, and then be present as, always ready for whatever sexual things, deviant things they want to do. And the woman gets what? What does the woman get? Particularly in this society where most households are two-income households, what does the woman get? No, what is she getting from it? Nothing. I don't understand this, getting married for the right reason thing. People, there are wrong reasons. I'm not going to argue that. Of course, there are wrong reasons, right? I don't know what those wrong reasons would be, but I think because you love someone is almost a wrong reason. It's like it's teetering on the edge of being a wrong reason. But I don't think this was a wrong reason. I really don't. I think if you don't think about it in terms of, what religion says marriage is, then there's no reason to consider this a wrong reason to get married. I don't think so. The fact that it didn't work out is its own matter, and that's fine. Things don't work out all the time, but just because it didn't work out doesn't make that a mistake or a wrong reason to do something. Things just don't work out all the time. That's life.
No, like, how is the relationship?
With me and my kids?
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Oh, because of the things they had been told about you?
We had to unpack it and to heal. Healing is a process. It's not a linear. Healing is very dynamic. You have to be incredibly honest with yourself. Look at yourself and look at the failings that you had. And tell your child, I'm sorry. And I know as African parents, we say we don't say sorry. I really told my children, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed as a mother. I'm sorry I left you behind. I'm sorry. And I hope that we can get building blocks to build our relationship back. And so we have.
And you guys, you're okay? One step at a time? Yeah. You said something, apologizing to our children.
Yes.
It doesn't happen often.
But you need to. That's how you mend the fences. I was young. I didn't know much. I didn't know better. But I know that I want to be a good mother. And for me, that is very important.
Yeah.
If anything else, I want to be remembered as a mother to my kids, and a good mother at that. And also a good person.
Yes.
I really like that. I feel like she's just a good mom, because these are the building blocks to good relationships. She just sounds to me like such a good mom.
Take your time.
Take your time.
It's never that serious. Yeah.
Like, have you forgiven yourself?
Have I? What do you think?
I think you have.
I have.
Good.
I'm a human being, and I'm fallible.
The first time I saw this, I had a serious problem with the fact that she asked her kids for forgiveness, and then she's also forgiven herself. And I don't know, I keep thinking about, maybe it's the fact that I have problems taking responsibility for shit, because I don't understand what she's forgiving herself for. I really don't understand what she's forgiving herself for. I partly don't even understand what she's asking her kids to forgive her for. Like, I understand. This is how I would understand it. If she was apologizing to her kids because something terrible happened to them. But not because she did something terrible. Because I do not know, I don't think she did something terrible. I think something terrible happened to them. Right? And that something terrible was done to them by their dad. Right? Not her. Like, so she's saying sorry the same way we say sorry to somebody, how I would perceive it and how I would like it to be. The way you say sorry to somebody when you hear they're sick, you're like, oh man, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. But not sorry, not the kind of sorry you would say if you broke their cup, their prized mug, which is, I'm sorry, I did this to you and I am sorry. Because I do not think that she did anything to her kids. I feel like the person who did terrible things was her husband. And so all of them were in the fallout zone. So sure, she was an adult in their life. And maybe, the way they perceive it and the way any normal child would perceive it, she should have been able to protect them. But, she's just a person. And for whatever reason, in this case, because of her husband's actions, her abusive husband's actions, she wasn't able to protect her kids in the way that she would have wanted. So I really don't understand this asking her kids for forgiveness thing. I most certainly do not understand forgiving herself. Now, for the kids, I swear to God, I can make sense of part of it. But forgiving yourself, what are you forgiving yourself for? A terrible thing was done to you. A really terrible thing was done to you. Like, I suspect part of this forgiving yourself thing comes from our very warped idea that that it takes two, that in any situation, both parties, where two or more parties are involved, where more than one party is involved, then it means everyone had a role to play, and there's no role to play for her. Like she's just a victim in this situation. There's no shared responsibility. There's nothing to forgive yourself for. I don't know. If you get it, can you please explain it to me? Why would she need to forgive herself? Because she didn't do anything. She did not do anything to contribute to this situation the way it played out. Somebody did this to her. Somebody found her when she was a really young girl. She was 15 years old. Proceeds to break her down until he can take advantage of her and control her and run roughshod over her life and that of her kids. Which part is her fault? What, things like she didn't leave? She couldn't leave. For whatever reason, she couldn't successfully and permanently leave until the day that she left. Right? That I don't understand that. I don't get it. Like, if you get it, can you please explain it to me? Why would she need to forgive herself?
Imagine you can leave, and the earlier you do, the better. First of all, your children watching you being beaten. is the worst thing you can subject your children. This is a conversation I'm having with my kids because they're big. And they tell me how they felt, how defeated, and how they didn't know what to do to protect me, you know?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this time round, when this man came back, because he came to this house to pick his kid, and he started talking smack, my kids stood up for me.
Oh, yes.
And they were like, let me tell you something, sir. Do not talk to my mother in that tone. They were not going to sit there helplessly.
Yes.
But let me tell you, do not subject your children. Children pick this up. Let me tell you what happens to children quickly. For girls, they can become incredibly promiscuous. They can get into early pregnancies. All these are reasons why you're sitting with a child. And for boys, they can become very aggressive because these are things that they see. And what you're doing to your children is you're giving them something we call ACE, which is advanced childhood trauma experiences. And it's very hard to heal from that. And your girls will gravitate towards men who abuse them and your children. So it's 50-50 chances. Either they'll become very timid or they will become abusers themselves because abusers are and then they see this is the power dynamics in a relationship. And so they become like that. Or they become very timid and withdrawn. You do not want to do this to your children.
No, you don't.
Look at the kind of nation we have. It's either people are very violent or people are very timid.
Look at us,
because we come from a government that abuses us very much. That now we become victims, and to take away our victimhood, we become abusers. That's why unaonanga tu mtu yote tu Facebook ameamka ametukana single moms, mwingine ameamka ameamkilia watu wengine. So it's something.
It stems
from somewhere. You need to start asking yourself these hard questions. Don't expose your kids to abuse. If you can walk away, go back home, come to us, talk to us. We have therapy. Talk to Shazmin. I mean, we have people who are out here who are rooting for you, who can help you walk through this experience. We'll give you a small place. You stay with us for a bit, and then you can integrate back to society, but don't stay. I have seen too many women dead, too many women who have died because they've decided to stay. Death doesn't have just to be physical. Death could be mental.
Ulikufa kitambo.
This is just a shell living. Death could be, you're no longer the person you used to be. Who is that girl who used to dream, who used to have life? Where did she go?
Where did she go? So you can always live.
No notes. I support it. I completely support it. A lot of times women think they're doing their kids a favor by staying. And maybe there's instances where it looks like it, particularly like where a man says he's not going to pay school fee, and it's like, oh my God. But overall, it does not work out, I think. In any case, that's a dicey thing. Overall, your children will not thank you for it, which is bad.
Yeah, and for those of you in the audience who do not know the kind of organization she runs, it's called Usikimie. You can check it, see the wonderful work she's doing with those men and women. I love that you take men into, because they have been, it's like we think men don't go through abuse, right? I love that you take even men too. But for the people who are watching you right now, live, where can they find you? And what would be your parting shot to our audience?
Every single story, so far, every single story insists on bringing men in, insists on talking about how men are also victims. How, we easily forget men are also abused. Nobody is forgetting that. Nobody is forgetting that. What we're saying is, right now, when we're talking about abuse, we're talking about women, and we get to talk about women alone without feeling guilty, without feeling the need to bring men in. We get to do that. Women are the primary victims of domestic violence. It doesn't even compare. It does not even compare. It doesn't come close. Given that this is the final part of the series, the last episode, I guess, of the 3-part series, I'm gonna say it again. Right? I'll say it again. The story of the canary in the coal mine. Miners used to take a canary, which is a small bird with them, into the depths of the mines while they were mining. And the purpose of it was because they couldn't tell the air quality just by looking. And they couldn't wait until their own lungs were failing to be able to know that that air quality was poor. Because once you're sick, once they were sick, like it was too late for them, they were out, they were dead. And so they would take a canary with them because it has more delicate lungs. And once the canary would start to suffer from the effects of the poor air quality, they would get out of the place where they were at because they knew by looking at the canary, right, that the air quality in there was bad. And so if they cared about the caring for the canary was caring for themselves. Watching out for the canary was watching out for themselves. And so what they would do is, if things got bad, if the canary was ill, they knew it was time to leave. And they would leave. Go back to a place where the canary could breathe better. This is what we need to do with this society. Women are the canary, right? When we're talking about men and women, because if we bring in children, because children are like the most oppressed, the most vulnerable class. But just if we keep it between, men and women in heterosexual relationships, if women are the canary and men are the miners, the way we take care of the miners is by taking care of the canary. The way we protect the miners is by protecting the canaries. Now that everyone is really concerned about men, and so concerned that we remember, even men, fuck men. Okay, even men, right? Even men, everywhere, even men. Okay. The way that we care for the miners is by caring for the canary, by caring for the ones who are most impacted by the air quality, the ones who are most affected by the conditions that we're in. When we're talking about men and women are the primary people who are most affected by the environmental factors that we have at play and the societal factors that we have at play. Once we care for the women and we make sure the canary is safe, even the miners will be safe. So right now, we need to be caring about the canary. We live in a society that prioritizes men in every way. Like, we cannot just talk about women without having to bring in men, and that too is patriarchy. That too is our internalized male supremacist logic. It's this nonsense that we imagine passes for balance, that if we talk about women, we must talk about men. No. This is a little like Black Lives Matter, right? When black people, if we ever get to a society where police are not killing black people, they will not be killing anybody. They will not be killing anybody because black people, black men, black people in general are the most vulnerable population group when it comes to police violence. That's who's most vulnerable. And so if and when black people are safe, everybody will be safe. It's like people who want to shout, all lives matter, all lives matter. Like, dude, black people's house is on fire. It's on fire. So we're going to talk about black people and black people only. And once black people are safe, everybody will be safe. And in this situation, we're going to talk about women and women only. Once women are safe, everybody will be safe. Let me just say, it's very concerning to me how we just will not give women any room to have anything for themselves at all. We just will not. We can't just care for women and let that be enough. We can't just talk about women in an episode and let that be enough and not feel like we're excluding men, which is not what it is. Bancroft, when talking about knowing men who were true abusers, who were true victims of abuse, versus those who are lying, because a lot of abusers, a lot of men lie about being abused so that they can get sympathy. So one way to know that a man was truly abused is in the way they talk about other victims, by which I mean female victims. Do they believe them? Do they talk about them with any sense of empathy? Do they care about them? Do they see themselves in those victims? Because one thing society does is to make sure that men distance themselves from all things feminine, all things female. Right? Like, there's almost nothing you could call a man that's worse than calling them a woman. So, if there are men out there who are victims of violence, of this kind of abuse, if they really are victims, and if they really are the kind of people that we should care about, then they will also see themselves in the stories of the women and girls that we talk about, and young boys, the women and children that we talk about. They will see themselves in there, and in particularly the women, because that's who, is most beneath them according to society. That's who they should never see themselves in. If they are victims that we should care about, they will see themselves in women's stories without having to be called out by name, without having to have this special space separated and created just for them so they feel special. Oh yeah, they also said men. Fuck men. If you cannot see yourself in the victims, the female victims we're talking about, if you cannot see yourself in the stories of these women, then you're not somebody we're going to go ahead with, right? You're not somebody who's going to be beneficial to our movement. You're just not. You are too wedded to the patriarchy for you to be of use to us, and in fact, that makes you a danger to us. Anyone wedded to the patriarchy is somebody who is a danger to us. Especially that if that somebody is a man, they are a danger to us. That's what they are. So no, alright? Like, if nothing else, I do not want to hear us creating all of these special spaces for men when we're talking about women. Listen, when a man comes and shares his story of abuse, then okay, we can talk about, even men. But when a woman is talking about her story, can we keep it to women? Like, can we just let women have this one thing? A whole terrible thing. Can we just let women have this one thing? Just a 1 hour segment. Can we just allow ourselves to prioritize women one time without feeling this need to, in equal measure, elevate men, and also, even men. Anyway, that's that, I guess. I enjoyed. Okay, let me close out the whole 3-part series. I'm glad that I got to do this. Like, I appreciate what it has done for me. Just sort of opened my eyes a little more, helped me to see all of these recurring themes that I could have easily missed if I wasn't looking out for them. And if I wasn't sitting through and watching the clips again. And an interesting thing that it's done for me is it's made me so much more compassionate and empathetic where women who have dealt with abuse are concerned. Because, they're just people like me, and a terrible thing happened to them. And I feel like a lot of times we are socialized to imagine that women who have been subjected to abuse sort of fit a certain mold, right? When I was young, I thought it was only poor women who got into these things, who found themselves in these situations. I really did think that. And then I grew up and I heard the stories and I was like, oh wait, it's just women. All you need to do to, risk finding yourself on the wrong side of a man's fist is just be a woman. That's it. And, so thanks to these women for sharing these stories with us, these stories that, according to our society, they're supposed to be ashamed to share with us. And yet the stories are saving our lives and opening our eyes to things that we didn't even know about. So thank you so much to these women. Once again, I would just like to appreciate every single one of them. Sophia from So This Is Love podcast, the episode season 4, episode 7, Sophia and Bumpy. Thank you so much, Sophia. And then June from the June and Lynn Ngugi story. From the June, she's called June Katei Reeves. Her story is told to Lynn Ngugi, and then this Njeri Migwi story that was told in 2 parts by me, or at least I broke it down into 2 parts. The one as told to Kalekye Mumo, and then the second part as told to Lynn Ngugi. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for pulling back the curtain and letting us see things that we would otherwise not know about. Giving us an education that we would otherwise not be privy to. So thank you. Thank you. To all of you who have followed me through this yapping journey, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been interesting. I have said interesting at least 673 times since I started the series. I'm gonna have to find other words. So thank you so much for coming along on the journey with me. That's it. That is how we close this series. About how we talk about abuse, how we tell stories of abuse. Alright, cool. Until next time, remember who you are. Love life, love people, and stay limited.